Something very emotional just happened before I started filming this. Just booked an appointment at the hairdresser's. First time in about 5 months. If you told me last year I get nearly emotional at the prospect of getting my hair cut, I wouldn't believe you. 2020, you are wild. It's Tom Campbell from Isolation Station 24601 with your wrestling news. WWE is interested in signing a recently released wrestler. Cody has commented on Sammy Guevara's suspension, and matches have been added to NXT Great American Bash. We'll get into those in a bit. So we ended the week last week talking about Tessa Blanchard, who was terminated from Impact Wrestling and stripped of her World Championship. There were some questions over the relationship between Impact and Tessa. It certainly feels as if that relationship broke down, and it doesn't seem that this is the end of the road for Tessa, as Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio has reported that WWE has sent the feelers out to possibly bring Tessa Blanchard to WWE. Now, this won't be Tessa's first time in a WWE ring. Back in 2017, I want to say off the top of my head, she was part of the Mae Young Classic. She lost to Kairi Sane. She's been a part of NXT on a couple of occasions as well. There's a few of her matches on the WWE Network. She had a match with Nia Jax, among other people there as well. But there was certainly some intrigue to keep Tessa in WWE, but Impact Wrestling came a-calling in 2018 and she signed on the dotted line with them instead. She like many people within that NXT development system, sort of thought, well, I could probably be doing more somewhere else. Impact brought her in, and she for 2 years, she was a force of nature there, had an amazing feud with Gail Kim. She became a Knockouts champion, and she became, as we know, the first female to hold the Impact World Heavyweight Championship. A series of matches with Sami Callihan that were just brilliant. Sadly, that relationship, as we talked about on Friday, very much broke down over the last couple of months. There was plans to have Tessa come to Slammiversary, which would have been the last day of her contract with Impact Wrestling, as it's turned out, to come in and drop the Impact World Championship. Wasn't really fussed about doing that, from what we understand. They'd asked her to send in promos ahead of Slammiversary to hype a match she was scheduled to have. She wasn't doing that as well. So as it stands, things ended quite badly between Impact and Tessa Blanchard. But as many of us predicted, this wouldn't be the end of the road for someone like Tessa Blanchard. We can't talk about Tessa Blanchard without mentioning some of the bullying accusations against her back in January. It was the weekend of Hard to Kill, when several people came through on social media to talk about Tessa's conduct backstage. And she half addressed this in the post-match promo she did after winning the Impact World Championship. And it's a wonder whether those allegations will rear their heads once again if she ends up joining WWE. Meanwhile, in AEW, Sammy Guevara has begun his suspension from the company. This is following comments of a very inappropriate nature resurfacing from a podcast he did several years ago. AEW responded upon these comments going viral by suspending Sammy Guevara without pay, his salary going towards a women's charity based in Jacksonville, also signing him up for sensitivity training at the end of his suspension period. Now, several fans have tweeted their support for Sammy Guevara during this time. One of them tweeted out towards Cody Rhodes, asking him to reinstate Sammy Guevara. And Cody actually replied to this tweet saying the following: "Sammy will return, and he will be a better professional wrestler and a better man when he does." So despite the nature of the comments, there is that confidence that when he comes back, he'll be a reformed person. We do know as well that Sammy has spoken to Sasha Banks. Both parties have been heard. Sammy is very apologetic about the comments that he made. Sasha Banks has also talked about it and said that it's an opportunity to learn. So when Sammy comes back, I don't think this will damage Sammy going long term. I think a lot of people believe that it will. Personally, I don't think this will do Sammy a lot of damage long term. I think he'll take time away. I think he'll go through the training and then he'll come back and he'll continue to light up the wrestling ring again. A WWE Hall of Famer is getting on board the subscription service on the internet. And, oh, no, not like that. No. I mean, Yeah, I guess that could be a thing. That'd be all right, but not that, no. Bret the Hitman Hart, of course, I'm talking about. Bret Hart has announced that he is launching a 35-episode series on his official website called Confessions of the Hitman. He's going to be speaking incredibly candid about a whole manner of things, into his life away from the ring, his career in the ring. We'll get stories we've never heard before, stories about current events as well. Bret's going to be very outspoken about everything going on in the world today as well. And it's a paid service, so you can buy all 35 episodes for $35. That works out at $1 an episode to hear Bret having a chat about stuff. Slammiversary is around the corner for Impact Wrestling, and I believe they've teased 946 wrestlers to make their returns and or debuts on that particular night. Two of those who are now in the mix are Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Now, we saw pictures of Doc, aka Luke Gallows, when they put that video out a few weeks ago, hyping up those wrestlers who had been released from WWE. So it started the wheels of rumour and innuendo were turning when we saw that. But Pro Wrestling Sheet have reported that Impact Wrestling has been heavily pursuing Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson to join Impact Wrestling at Slammiversary on July the 18th. Now, according to the sheet, they've offered Gallows and Anderson incredibly strong deals that would allow them to work with New Japan once that is a possibility, both in a legal sense and in a travel sense. Obviously, restrictions in place at the moment stop that from happening, but that has to be very tantalising for Gallows and Anderson to have the chance to work for both a US company and head over to Japan as well. Now, obviously, they've not commented on this yet. They're going to have a very interesting July, because that is when their no-compete for the WWE is up, and they have promised they will be talking about a whole manner of things within their WWE run on their podcast Talking Shop. One of those things including their Saudi Arabia experience, but they're going to wait until it is out of the contract period of WWE, and they're going to talk about it then. And also, who knows, we may even see them at Slammiversary. A few other names that have been teased to be a part of Slammiversary include EC3, Heath Slater, Eric Young, Ken Anderson, Bully Ray. Add Gallows and Anderson to that ever-expanding list of people that could turn up. Big announcement from the El Rey Network. Sadly, it is not the return of Lucha Underground. I know. One day we'll get that back. But if you're looking for something very unique with a wrestling tint, how about a talk show hosted by Vampiro? Yes, that's a thing. Vampiro Unleashed is coming to the El Rey Network on the 9th of July, and they've put a little preview of what to expect on the El Rey Network Facebook page right now. If you heard Vampiro's famous, very sweary outburst during Triple Mania a year or so back, you will be just as excited about Vampiro hosting a talk show as I am. And finally, we are getting set for a massive fortnight of Wednesday Night Wrestling. AEW Fighter Fest kicks off on Wednesday. 2 weeks of massive matches for AEW. Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho next week. Oh man, that'll be a thing. Jon Moxley and Brian Cage, all being well, will be happening next week as well. Some big matches happening for Fighter Fest this week as well. But the Great American Bash is happening as well for NXT. What a coinky-dink that WWE decided to run a 2-week special in the same week that AEW announced a 2-week special. I'm sure that is all it is just a coinky-dink. Some matches have been announced over the last couple of days for that show. Some you may have heard of, some you may not have heard yet. Sasha Banks is going to be in action over Great American Bash. She is going to be facing Io Shirai on Wednesday night in a non-title match. First time ever for these guys. Banks getting geared up for a match against Asuka at Extreme Rules. I'm looking forward to seeing what Shirai and Banks can do to set the pace on Wednesday night in non-title action. The Fatal 4-Way, which was announced last week for the #1 contendership for the Women's Championship in NXT, that's Mia Yim, it's Dakota Kai, Tegan Nox and Candice LeRae. That will now be elimination style. Just a little fun caveat thrown in there to make it a bit more intriguing. But how is this for a match on the kickoff show? Only Lorcan, in all caps, has been calling out Timothy Thatcher, and William Regal has made that official. We will have, we'll have it, won't we? Only Lorcan versus Timothy Thatcher on the Great American Bash kickoff on Wednesday. I'm just warning WWE, if you're starting Great American Bash with Lorcan and Thatcher, you won't have the rest of the 2 weeks because they will destroy everything. Can't tell you how excited I am to see Loki, only Lorcan. Loki's from the Marvel films, you silly goose. Only Lorcan and Timothy Thatcher going one-on-one. Only Lorcan can absolutely go, and him and Timbo may just have a Thatcher's Thatch Can style classic. I'm up for it. This could be a really interesting week in wrestling. Hopefully a brighter week than some of the weeks that we have had. Touch wood. I live in optimism. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.